Number 63-1A, the Committee of Selection of the Senate's revised standing orders provides for the appointment of a committee to consist of the President as chairman and two other senators to be known as a Committee of Selection. Be it here now resolved that the Honorable Senate doth now appoint the two other senators to the said committee. Honorable members, the question proposed is that it be resolved that the Honorable Senate does now appoint the two other senators of the said committee. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senator Steele.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the nominations for Committee of Selection are myself and Senator Andre Lewis. I believe in terms of me nominating myself, I would need a seconder on this side.
I'd like to second the motion.
Okay. Motion seconded by Senator Gawi. Honorable members, the following senators have been nominated to form the Committee of Selection, and they are Senators Andre Lewis and Senator Steele, with the President as chair. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator Steele.
Whereas Standing Order number 63-1B of the Senate Standing Orders provides for the appointment of a committee to consist of the President as chairman and two members to be known as the Standing Orders Committee, which shall be elected as soon as may be after the beginning of each session. Be it resolved that this Honourable Senate doth now appoint the members to the said committee.
Thank you, Senator Steele. Honourable members, the question proposed is that whereas Standing Order number 63-1B of the Senate Standing Orders provides for the appointment of a committee to consist of the President as chairman and two other members to be known as the Standing Orders Committee, which shall be elected as soon as may be after the beginning of each session, be it resolved that the Honourable Senate doth now appoint the members to that committee. Honourable members, the question is that this House now do appoint the members to the said committee of the Standing Orders, referred to as the Standing Orders Committee. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, the nominations for the Standing Orders Committee are Senator the Honourable Nolan Cox, member, Senator the Honourable Glenys Roberts, member, and under the chairmanship of you, the President.
The other member I missed that? Honourable members, you would have heard the appointments, namely the Honourable Nolan Cox and Glenys Roberts as the additional members to the Standing Orders Committee. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, whereas Standing Order number 63-1C of the Senate Standing Orders provides for the appointment of a committee to consist of the President as chairman and two members to be known as the House Committee, be it resolved that this Senate doth now appoint two members to the said committee.
Honourable members, the question proposed is that whereas Standing Order Committee 63-1C of the Senate Standing Orders provides for the appointment of a committee to consist of the President as chairman and two members to be known as the House Committee, be it resolved that the Honourable Senate doth now appoint the two members to the said committee. Honourable members, the question is that this Senate now appoints two members to the said committee being the House Committee. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, the nominees for the House Committee are Senator the Honourable Winston Garraway, member, Senator the Honourable Christy Ali, member. I have spoken to him already and he has agreed to take on that position under the chairmanship of you, the President.
Honourable members, the nominees to be appointed to the House Committee are the Honourable Winston Garraway and the Honourable Christopher Diali. Together with myself, those who are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. So the House Committee is constituted by Senators Winston Garraway and Chris Diali, with the President being the chair of that committee. Senator, the Honourable Simon Steele.
Whereas Standing Order number 63-1D of the Senate Standing Orders provides for the appointment of a committee to consist of the President as chairman and 4 members to be known as the Committee of Privileges, which shall be elected as soon as may be after the beginning of each session. Be it resolved that this Honourable Senate doth now appoint the 4 members of the said committee.
Honourable members, the question is that the House now appoints 4 members of the Committee of Privileges. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Could we now have the nominees, Senator?
Mr. President, the members nominated for the Committee of Privileges are Senator the Honourable Katisha Williams, member, Senator the Honourable Kim George, member, Senator the Honourable Dunstan Campbell, member, Senator the Honourable Ron Redhead, member, under the chairmanship of the President.
Honourable members, you've heard the nominees, which are Senators Katisha Williams, Kim George, Ron Redhead. I think I missed one. Huh? Oh, Dr. Dunstan Campbell. Honourable members, what say you? Those who have that opinion say aye. The contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator Steele, we move to bills.
Item number 15, bills.
Mr. President, I beg to introduce for first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled Appropriation 2019 Bill 2018.
A bill for an act to appropriate a sum of not exceeding $1,134,013,956 to the service of the state of Grenada for the period January 1st to December 31st, 2019, shortly entitled Appropriation 2019 Act 2018.
Senator Steele.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the relevant standing order of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting.
Honourable members, the question is that the relevant standing orders be suspended to enable this bill to be taken through all of its stages at this sitting. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, as this is a money bill, I wish to indicate that we have the Speaker's certificate, which gives me the necessary consent to present this bill to proceed. Mr. President, what we have before us, the bill, this appropriation bill, effectively puts into law the budget, the estimates of revenues and expenditure that we've just spent the last 3 days debating, running through ministry by ministry, vote by vote, the allocation of resources to the various projects, programs, and initiatives that will carry the government through, the government's focus through in delivering to bring fundamentally benefit to the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. The value of that budget, as outlined, is $1,134,013,956, which will be the funds that are allocated to the various initiatives. And going through the bill, there is a schedule here which outlines vote by vote, area by area, the recurrent and capital expenditure that is associated with each vote, and the ceiling so that we do not exceed the spending limits to it. So there isn't very much more for me to say other than the fact that the budget that is put forward that gives account for the monies that are allocated bring real value, real benefit to the people of this great nation of ours. And it's for those reasons, Mr. President, that I commend this bill for its second reading.
Just by way of information for the new senators, if you wish to make any comments that you thought you had not expounded on sufficiently in terms of clarity, you have an opportunity to do so now in the bill. You can't introduce any fresh matter, as it were. Yes, just to let you know. So I'll put the question now. The question proposed is that the bill be read a second time. Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Appropriation 2019 Act 2018.
Senator Steve.
Mr. President, I beg to move that for the third reading of this bill.
Yes, and again, to the benefit of the new senators. Because it is a money bill, you don't have to get into the committee stage, so you can move straight from the second reading to the third reading. All other bills will have to go through the committee, where the committee will examine the bill clause by clause and offer any amendments which in your own considered opinion ought to be made. Yes? Because it's a money bill does not go through that process. So I will now put the question. Honourable members, the question is that the Appropriation 2019 Bill 2018 be passed. Honourable members, the question is that the Appropriation Bill 2019 Bill 2018 be passed. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Appropriation 2019 Act 2018.
Senator, the Honourable Winston Garvey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise I beg to introduce for the first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled The Abatement of Litter Amendment Bill 2018.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Bill for an Act to amend the Abatement of Litter Act number 24 of 2015, shortly entitled Abatement of Litter Amendment Act 2018.
The Honorable Winston Garvey.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the relevant standing orders of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all of its stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that the standing orders be suspended in order to enable this bill to be taken through all of its stages at this sitting of the House. All those who are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do, in fact, have it. Senator Garvey.
Mr. President, I beg to move the second reading of the bill. Mr. President, the Abatement of Litter Act 2015 was passed in 2015, Cap 1, which was to replace Cap 1. While the bill was not put in force, quite a lot of work has been done towards bringing us to the place where it will be enforced in the near future. As a matter of fact, the necessary ministerial orders have been executed to bring us to that place. The Abatement of Litter Act seeks to introduce or to put in place a cadre of persons who will be responsible for, as it were, policing the city, your towns, wherever within Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, to ensure that our people dispose of litter properly. And they're given the responsibility to charge the fixed penalties, as you say, a ticketing system towards ensuring that our citizens comply with the Act. So we've had three categories of persons who are enacted or given that special privilege when the Act was first established. And we talk about police officers, public health inspection officers, forestry officers. These three categories of workers were given that responsibility to police the Abatement of Litter Act. The amendment of 2018, Mr. President, seeks to introduce a new category of workers to police the Act. And in this regard, we're hoping to give that powers and authority to the traffic wardens that will be given that responsibility to control traffic within the state of Grenada. And we could see the value of giving such powers to the traffic wardens who've been there already, who will be assisting with parking and the regulating and controlling of the traffic, the flow of traffic. So they will be on the ground already. And we're thinking, it's our belief, that seeing that they are there, that additional duty to assist citizens to comply with the Litter Act will be an easy fit. And in so doing, Mr. President, I want to introduce today that powers is given to the traffic wardens to become litter wardens as well. With this few words, I want to commend this bill for its second reading.
I'd like to. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Is now I can ask a question and make a comment? Now I can ask a question and make a suggestion? Yes. Thank you very much, and we welcome this. On the section 4, that will be page 5, section 4, number 3. Even if it is not there, I want to make a suggestion. It does not have to change, but in looking at the uniform, okay, this here addresses the uniform. It would be good to see something for what we'll call protective clothing. Oh my, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of got ahead of my time. It is part of my commitment, that's doing everything up front, That's why I do it.
Senator Steele, yes. We on the abatement of litter bill. Just doesn't have that many sections, actually. It's just really 2 sections, a short title, and then amendment to section 12 of the Principal Act. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I too wish to lend my support to this amendment. And just to add to the presenter's comments, the rationale behind this. One, it is to bring into force the Litter Abatement Act, which was passed, I believe, back in 2015, 2016. But the intention is to bring it into force in 2019, and a key component of it is the establishment of the litter wardens and the pairing of responsibilities to the traffic wardens. There are complementarities in terms of the areas they're patrolling, and it is a highly efficient way of being able to combine services. The traffic wardens who are out in town in generally urbanized areas, and if knowing that a lot of the litter that is generated is also from motorists is in those same areas, then there is a commonality in terms of function. And this is seen as an important step forward and an important enabler for us to start the enforcement of this. As we all know, we have passed legislation to ban certain pollutants, single-use plastics, styrofoam, etc., which are a major cause for litter. But the fact that biodegradable products will be coming into place in replacement of the styrofoam and single-use plastics, it doesn't actually stop the issue with people actually throwing that litter around. So whether it's degradable or non-biodegradable, it's still litter. But we see as an opportunity as we start heightening national awareness regarding the ban on single-use plastics and styrofoam, that there is a natural link to the introduction of this Litter Abatement Act. So it's not just a case of those pollutants are more ecologically sensitive, but also to this push for changed behavior. And through the litter wardens and the establishment of that and the enforcement of this, there'll be carrot and there'll be stick. There will be an educational component, public awareness component, so that persons, the population, is aware of their responsibilities. And being back to the budget debate and Senator Roberts' wonderful comment, very truism about the need for us to change our behaviors. Having the litter wardens and the implementation of this act will provide that framework for carrot and stick for that change behavior. So this piece of legislation enables us to mobilize together with the traffic wardens that very important function of persons to monitor and enforce the Litter Abatement Act. And we think it's a major step in changing our consumer behavior and acting more responsibility with this regard. So on that note, Mr. President, I thank you.
Ms. Roberts?
I rise, Mr. President, thank you, to also add my voice to being extremely happy, not only as a resident or a Grenadian, but as a member of the Grenada Green Group, who has been working with the Ministry of Health, Environment over the years to ensure that this law actually come into play. And it ties into with our tourism, because we have advocates like tour operators who always complain and take pictures, like Mr. Ian Blakey and Mandu. I know they'll be happy, elated to finally have wardens, Mr. Senator Steele. So thank you very much for making the change as a member of the Grenada Green Group, in addition to being a senator. So I'm a proud senator today. It's historic that we are here. So going into 2019, we are keeping Grenada pure and clean. Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to thank the members for their contribution. Just about 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to be in a session where this young man from Grenada Green Group made a presentation, which I thought was very useful for the time, from the time that we are in, as it relates to how much we as citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique should get on board as it relates to protecting our environment. And he said he got involved because it was a foreigner, someone from England, who came, liked this place, and saw some of the filth that he saw in some of the areas and decided, hey, something needs to be done. And he started out, and today we have the Green Group. And what was very, very powerful about this, it was a young man, I think probably in his 20s, if so, that, yes, doing that presentation and coming from a disaster management background, because it was a disaster management session, and I said, very powerful. Because we do believe if we have to keep our environment clean, we have to start the education right now in the schools. Get our young people involved to understand the dangers. And I was particularly pleased. I also, in my earlier life, used to be involved in tours. Yes, I was awarded by Princess Cruise as the best tour guide in Grenada. I have pins to show that and so forth. But the point is, you had to find a way when you're on tours to navigate the eyes of your visitors from those sort of troubling areas where you have pollution. And you had to find a way to either tell them of something on the other side that they don't really see it. But ever so often we had a good report that the streets were very clean, and I had reason to say why it was clean, because our people took interest in doing that. I'm saying all this to say, Mr. President, it is not our intention to find our people to be clean. This should be ingrained in us. And I'm speaking now to our parents at home. that we teach our young ones right now that it is important for us to keep our environment clean. And that should be the added incentive for us, just knowing that we have a clean environment. But if one fail to maintain a clean environment, you can be punished. And that's what the law seeks to do. I hope it's going to be a deterrent so that persons will recognize the value that we place on a clean environment, because it's all about safeguarding our future. And I am particularly pleased, Mr. President, that we have members here who have committed themselves, the life work, towards helping to shape and fashion a Grenada that is clean and pristine and remain pristine. Because as we move into this new era of high-end tourism marketing for this country, that is something that we must be aware of. A clean environment is what's going to encourage our visitors to wanting to come back. So with these few words, Mr. President, I want to commend this bill for its second reading.
The second time. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Abatement of Litter Amendment Act 2018.
Senator Garvey.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate so that we can consider the bill clause by clause.
Honorable members, the question is that the Senate resolves itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The Senate is now resolved into a committee of the whole Senate. Again, for the newcomers at this stage, if there's any clarification that you wish to seek, you can seek it. If there's any amendment that in your considered opinion ought to be made, this is the time to make it. You don't stand because the House is in a committee, but of course the other protocols would apply. So if there's anything you want clarified or you want to offer an amendment to anything, this is the point at which you can do so.
Clause 2, amendment to Section 12 of the Principal Act. Clause 1, short title.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 1, the short title, forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Garvey.
I beg to move that the Senate resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the Senate resumes and that the chairman reports progress on the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. The contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do now have it. Honorable members, the Senate now resumes in full session. Honorable members, I have to report that the Senate committee considered the bill clause by clause and offered no amendments to the bill. Senator Garvey.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the chairman's report be adopted.
Honorable members, the question is that the chairman's report be adopted. Those who have that opinion say aye. The contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator Garvey.
Mr. President, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the bill be ready third time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be ready third time and passed. All those who have that opinion say aye. The contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it, the ayes do have it.
A bill for an act.
Excuse me, Mr. Clerk. Should have pointed out again for the new senators that at the third reading, before the question is finally put, again, if there was something that you forgot or some oversight or something you want to say, there's an opportunity again for you to do so at the third reading. So bear that in mind for future reference. Yes, Mr. Clerk.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Abatement of Litter Amendment Act 2018.
Senator the Honorable Nolan Cox.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I beg to introduce for first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2018.
A bill for an act to amend the Road Traffic Act, Cap 289A, shortly entitled Road Traffic Amendment Act 2018.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the relevant standing order of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this present sitting. Mr. President, I beg to move the second reading of the bill. Mr. President, before this House is the Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2018. Mr. President, this bill seeks to amend the Road Traffic Act Cap 289A, primarily to establish the position of traffic warden and to empower traffic wardens to exercise specific powers currently exercisable by members of the Royal Greater Police Force. Mr. President, by way of background, as relates to this important amendment, in that, Mr. President, as a consequence of development in Grenada, economic and development otherwise, we continue to see Grenada continue to grow. And as such, persons are more empowered financially and continue to procure more and more vehicles on an annual basis. As such, Mr. President, our roads are becoming more congested daily, and this has presented several challenges for the Royal Greater Police Force and, of course, the government by extent. Mr. President, sometime earlier today, the representative for the business community indicate their happiness with such a bill. And we believe the reason for that is because the significant losses that the business community have been suffering from this new challenge that we have with our traffic on the roadway. And just imagine, Mr. President, during prime time, peak times on the roadway, it's very difficult. It takes you, in some cases, more than an hour to get to areas that normally would take you about 15 minutes. And that has continued to create losses in terms of time for a lot of businesses. Just imagine for the busmen, normally, if you were to make 2 or 3 trips on a particular route per day, now that may just be basically 1.5 because of that congestion. So there's a number of intricacies that is taking place with this congestion that we are experiencing. So, Mr. President, this amendment seeks to bring into force traffic wardens who will now assist our policemen in the execution of the duties in managing the traffic on a daily basis. As such, Mr. President, This bill seeks to give certain powers to our newly appointed, soon to be appointed traffic wardens through the Transport Board, Mr. President. Mr. President, in looking at the amendments to the Principal Act, there are 14 amendments in this bill, and I will just speak to just a couple critical ones just for us to understand some of the powers that the traffic wardens will be able to exercise. In looking at Clause 4, Mr. President, Clause 4 provides for the insertion of a new section, Section 3B, to the Principal Act, which establishes the position of traffic wardens to provide for qualifications, appointment, remuneration, uniforms as a traffic warden. So this is critical for them to identify themselves out there while they're executing their duties so that the public will know that these are traffic wardens, apart from somebody who is probably wearing a costume for Halloween or for Christmas. Mr. President, if we look at Clause 5, it provides for the amendment of Section 6 of the Principal Act to empower traffic wardens to place on the vehicle under control of the police if the vehicle does not bear the prescribed identification. What is it saying? That if a traffic warden recognizes that your vehicle does not have the requisite license identification stick on the screen, he or she do have the power to stop and question, and in some cases impound that vehicle. Mr. President, also looking at a little further at Clause 10. Clause 10 provides for an amendment of Section 73 of the Principal Act to impose on cyclists, pedestrians, the obligation to comply with directions. Also, this is saying that if for some reason you have an accident in a particular area, traffic wardens do have the power to detour the traffic in order to ensure that the traffic moves properly. So a number of powers have been given to our traffic wardens, and that in essence will alleviate some of the challenges that our police officers have to do every day. Bear in mind that they do an excellent job, Mr. President. Mr. President, I wanted to give this opportunity to recognize a female constable. I think it's Constable 542. She gives traffic just on that Locust Street. Mr. President, I want to put on record she does an excellent job. And probably, I mean, she operates like she has three-dimensional vision. She's standing straight, and she's getting traffic here, traffic there. She's knowing when to stop. I mean, it's magical, you know. So I really want to commend and recognize her. I wish there was some way I can maybe advocate for an increase for her, but I'll probably leave that for the Labour rep. I do not want to take anybody's job and responsibility right there. But we're starting pay first before we get to gratuity. So, Mr. President, we believe this is a progressive piece of a bill. It shows that Grenada is moving. And one of the things, Mr. President, that we have been discussing on government side is how we can improve this. We know that in more developed countries, we have parking meters, and everybody have a cell phone now, Mr. President. In some of the bigger countries, there are meters where there is an app through the Transport Board, and you have it on your phone. You type in a number on the pole, and you pay your fee, how long you want to stay, and government collects its revenue, even without somebody being there. But so these are some of the things that I believe that will happen going forward in terms of improving on the traffic situation in Grenada. But we believe this is an excellent start, and we also want to call on the public to work with us, continue to cooperate with us to ensure that our policemen and the soon-to-be traffic wardens in the execution of their duties, that they provide the support, not only just for our citizens, but also for our visitors, to ensure what their visit in Grenada is one that is memorable with every encounter. So, Mr. President, with these few words, I want to move this bill for second reading. Thank you very much.
Proposed second reading. I would really like to know what's happening with our traffic lights.
Mr. President, if I could recall, I am certain that we do have some significant proposed funding budgeting in the current budget for 2019 to have them replace. What has happened, Mr. President, our current traffic lights are a little bit antiquated, and as such, a decision has been taken to have them replaced. A lot of work has been going to have them repaired, like patching it. So funds have been budgeted to have those replaced for 2019. I can't remember the figure, but I think it's somewhere around $2 million thereabout or so, if I could recall. I stand corrected. But that is what is guarded for that.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the bill be read a second time. Debate. Senator James?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, while I share my interest and applaud to this road traffic amendment bill, some key areas stood out to me. Page 5, where it states section 2, a traffic warden shall, and I'll only read part F, which is have passed a written examination set by the Commissioner of Police. Reading the clause, Mr. President, I believe that these traffic wardens would be a replica to that of our traffic department police officers. And as Senator Norton Cox would have alluded, I believe that we should also incorporate with that examination a training for them, because it doesn't take an examination alone for them to be able to direct traffic as efficiently. Also, Mr. President, the clauses, I believe some of the clauses should have been, at least 2 of the clauses should have had something more concerning traffic diversion. It's only, the clauses are only stating that basically they could do everything, almost everything as a police officer should. And I think that these clauses are too heavy because they still have to be litter wardens. So if they are writing traffic tickets, ensuring that people have the what do they call it, the decal? The sticker, the license sticker, it's too much. So I would have liked to see that, you know, they would have, the clauses would have represented much more of a traffic diversion. In addition to that, I think that with the other bills that they have attached to it, some equipment should be looked into, because we've heard about a situation, I'm not too sure how true is that, but we've heard about a situation over the past few months when the big flooding happened down on the southern side, and the police traffic department got stuck in the traffic trying to go and divert traffic. So with the use of technology, it will enhance their ability to properly divert traffic. You know, we have the drones, so maybe they should look into adding some equipment to the efficiency of these traffic wardens. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, my gratuitous time has reached. Yeah. I just want to basically say, especially the aspect of training, it's a very, very good insight. In relation to the same section, that's page 5, section 4, subsection 3, that deals with the uniforms. We need to make provision for some sort of protective clothing. I'm not saying the fact that you itemize, I know it may be said that, okay, these things will be done, but the fact that you itemize the different items, so something, for instance, like a raincoat or something, so remember, these wardens are expected to be outside, and we need to look at protecting our people. So I just thought that this should be one of these. And by the way, 1 second, are they expected to be out almost 24/7? The fact that they are reflective, so I'm expecting that they would be equipped probably without the firearm, but other things similar to the police officer, with such lights and those type of different things. We can make provision. Yes? As we go into these things, we need to make those kind of provisions. Yes? That's just my quick observation.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to join with my colleagues on the other side and the private sector representative, senator who made mention of... sorry. Well, I apologize. How could I make such a mistake? Mr. President, yes, the Labour Senator. Mr. President, two things. I just want to say as well that we share the view that we should see a lot more training, at least hands-on training, as opposed to just the written examination. The whole question of the work hours of the traffic wardens, because I think that will be very interesting. The Labour Senator would have alluded to that. You know, what would they be required to search lights, that sort of thing with the equipment. But the question of the work hours, I think that is something of concern. Again, they would be also performing duties of litter wardens. But I want to find out, is the structure, the mechanism in place for proper disposal, certainly in and around the town? And the last area that we have concern with is the area concerning the salaries of the traffic wardens. I do not believe that it should be determined only by the minister. I really and truly believe that the transport board of some sort should have an integral part to play. If that is the case, then I stand corrected, but based on how it is outlined here, Mr. President, I think it only says that the minister will determine the pay of the traffic wardens. I don't share that view. So I think all in all, the bill seems progressive. We don't have many criticisms of the bill, but I would have also liked to see the question of technology being incorporated. I saw the list of the equipment that they would be using, but I know recently the RGPF would have received some surveillance cameras, that sort of thing. How would the traffic wardens coordinate traffic activities using the technology? So that is the question that and concerns that we have relating to the bill. All in all, we support this bill, Mr. President.
Issues touching and concerning things like working hours, that comes into the more administrative format. You wouldn't see that in the bill. But one is to assume that there are other laws which govern working hours and so on, so that will take its place here. But the likelihood of seeing this in a bill is almost zero. The bill is a more overarching. I wouldn't get down to specifics as to what technology would apply. That will be left to the determination of the Commissioner of Police, who I am fairly certain will strive towards the most efficient police service. And as such, you wouldn't find that in the bill itself. Just thought I should make that comment. Did I see somebody else's light on?
Yeah.
Yes. Senator Roberts?
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand to support the bill. However, as we move forward to getting the wardens in place, I want us to be cognizant of the number. I didn't hear about how many wardens we were going to do initially. However, in the area that I live, which is Lancer Valley, which is higher to Grandlands Valley, Woodlands, Clarkscourt Bay, traffic is a nightmare, morning to night. We need to start to adopt parking times, because particularly in that area, you have a lot of people doing their entrepreneur, which is selling food, because the south have become so saturated. So we need to look at that area, on top of people residing and people being progressive in getting their own transportation. So we need parking times, and we need lots of wardens in Grandlands Valley. Disposal of litter. Every piece of litter belongs to a human being. You buy a bottle of water, it's yours when it's full and it's yours when it's empty. So walk with it in your handbag and your pocket. Nobody have to, you're not supposed to supply receptacles. You could bring it back into your home and discard of it. We have a great disposal system in Grenada. This thing about just throwing your wrapper and throwing your wrapper, we have to stop. In one part of Grenada, I must say, Minoka, nobody litters in Minoka. They have an excellent community, so all of us, litter begins with us. Minoka is in St. David's. Litter starts with you and how you see the environment around you. I heard talk about teaching in school. The kids are the best. You go around any school, South St. George Anglican, spotless because they are taught. Adults are the one buying boxes lunchtime and throwing it out the bus, not the children. We must commend them for that. If you go around the schools, you can see the teachers, they're doing well with that. We need wardens, especially on carnival time. Juve morning, throwing, going on the beach, swimming and dropping your jab clothes, so you're going on the reef. All of those things we have to look at as we're moving forward. And actually, we need wardens at the shows too, because when you go to everything, they dump, they throw. The last time I passed in, going to church in front of Montrouge, and if you see, it was, no, and I would say the show, it was Uncle Somebody children's show, and the whole of Montrouge, Mr. President, was filled with glasses and bottles. Now, after your show, you need to be paying someone to clean the field. It's public field, okay? So this is my contribution as we go towards wardens. I'm so happy. I'm hearing about app, but Grandlands Valley, and saying to the nation, litter starts with you and me. You would not just throw things randomly in your yard. Do not do it in the public space. Please, your wrapper is yours, the biscuit paper is yours, the crisp paper is yours. Go home with it and put it in your litter. Thank you, and I commend this bill.
Senator Judd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I stand to give my full endorsement to this bill. Over the last months or year, I heard so much about the fact that we need wardens. And the fact that we are now talking about the traffic wardens, which also have the responsibility as litter prevention wardens. I must commend the government for this initiative. Mr. President, I think this is really going to make a big difference in the way traffic flow, especially in the morning. Usually when I head to work, traffic is really, really terrible. And sometimes you leave an hour earlier and you're still reaching to work late. So I'm hoping that it will help with the ease of flow. I'm certain that it will do that with the ease of flow through town and also in the afternoon. But Mr. President, I'm saying that there are a lot of power basically imposed on those wardens. And I must say that I agree with them, but I have the view of that the public should also respect those wardens. You have a normal international view for the sea wardens. So normally you hear people say that police generally command a grudging respect. Firefighters are usually admired. Nurses are adored, but wardens are usually seen as villains. Because what you do, you clamp vehicles, you give tickets, and sometimes it's not the most pleasant thing you get from the public. So I'm hoping, well, I know that there's a act or law. I was asking my dear senator here about, I think it's going to apply to the wardens based on their responses. If you insult them, I think there are laws to deal with that. And I call on the public to respect those wardens, because it's I know drivers, you look at some of those bus drivers and they drive really reckless. Some of them have no respect when it comes to the way that they treat. So I pray that we respect those wardens. They're going to do they have a very important task, a very important responsibility, and we need to respect them and their duty. I just thought I should make this contribution, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to give my full support to the passage of this amendment and to say that this is an excellent move of the government as it relates to giving our regular police officers more time in the hand to do the policing work. As we have seen, some of the mundane things that will be done, or is done by police officers now, will be given to the wardens, so that the whole idea of policing the state, ensuring law and order is maintained, will be had. And at the same time, we have a number of young people who will be given employment. And that is critical. A number of young people will be given employment to become traffic wardens. Who knows? They might fully integrate into the police system later on. When in terms of training and the likes, they will be taken through this, because frankly, this will call for a level of maturity but temperament, because you're doing a work that, as you say, enforcing the law, writing up tickets and so forth. Sometimes people react to it. But the warden is supposed to have a level of temperament and maturity to speak people out of wanting to react probably violently, as the case may be. And in order for this to happen, they will be trained. Bring them to that place where they'll be able to speak people out of wanting to react negatively. But I was sent a picture, someone from overseas sent me a picture some time ago, and where a vehicle was immobilized. It was clamped on the Melville Street. And, pardon? So you saw it. In front of the development bank. And the gentleman, when he came from where he was doing his business, realized that the vehicle was immobilized. And he went into the back of his vehicle and took out his wrench and his jack and the lights and so forth. And he removed the wheel, put in a new one, and he moved away. Really and truly, this is an offense. If a vehicle is immobilized by the police officer, it becomes the property of the police officer. And the warden will be given the responsibility to do such. But if, and let me read section 5, Mr. President, he said, if a motor vehicle remains under the, section 4. No person except a traffic warden or police officer or a person authorized by the police officer may remove 30A of the Principal Act, section 4. Yeah. See. And it's a power of immobilizing device. The Principal Act,
Another amendment, that's it.
Yeah, Principal Act. 30A, power to fit immobilizing device. And section 4 is saying no person except a traffic warden, a police officer, or a person authorized by the police officer may remove, attempt to remove, or in any way interfere with an immobilizing device or a motor vehicle under the control of the police officer or the police force pursuant to this section. And I'm saying it because we all took it as a big joke. The gentleman removed the immobilizing device, but this is an offense. And I just want to say to folks, if a warden should immobilize a vehicle, though they are not with a police garb as we see it, and that command respect. The uniform is prescribed in the act, say what they're going to wear, the baseball cap with the reflective writing of RGPF and the likes. That is the authority. And each piece of the clothing that is prescribed in the law here is part of the authority. And should somebody try to slap the cap off or do anything to them, you are basically contravening the law. The traffic warden will be given certain powers and powers of immobilizing vehicles. We have to respect them. But I want to end by saying, Mr. President, it's a great move by this government because we are creating within the country, and I'm seeing it from the standpoint of you have citizens who are not police officers, but are given responsibility to act in areas where the police officers would have in the past, but now they are given that set of responsibility in the country. And I know our people will respect them, and that's where I'm going with the point. The respect I am seeing from our citizens to obey the instruction of those wardens. And I want to commend all those who have been given that opportunity to function as wardens, to do your work and do it well, because we all depend on them. I know in the first outlay of the wardens, it will be in the south of the island to the capital city. We have in St. Andrews and Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Not the entire country will have wardens at this point in time, but it's a start in the right direction. And in keeping with the new bus route that will be established from the St. David's into the south of the island, the Sugar Mill area, you can see the value of the traffic wardens coming in. Because this is a new route. You didn't have police officers traversing this area as you would see on the other end of the south. So I'm seeing them playing a pivotal role in ensuring that traffic is flowing nicely. And the move of the bill may go into it, but I just want to put this in as it relates to parking and parking space and so forth. One of the things that I know they have been trained in, most of our streets, people live close to the streets, and they use the streets as their garage overnight. That will still happen. But in the early morning, they will have to move it up. And the traffic warden will be, they are trained to work with those homeowners and let them know you cannot have your vehicle parked on the street during that particular time. And I look forward and I encourage all our homeowners who will live close to the street and park the vehicles on the street to obey and to honor the command of our traffic warden. But all in all, Mr. President, this is a great move. It's an advancement in the society, and it's bringing us closer to what is obtained in the bigger societies around the world. I thank you.
Solicit the views on the second reading. I would just want to use the opportunity to interject a few comments here, and for the attention of all, but particularly for the attention of the government side. While the appointment of wardens will no doubt create employment for some, but whether we want to accept it or not, we live in a society with a propensity towards disorder. And I will take pity on any warden who does not exude maturity, and that we take wardens who don't have the necessary robustness. I have observed assault on police officers in uniform. I have observed that on more than one occasion. I have also observed that not only the individual owner of the vehicle that was illegally parked in front of the development bank coming out and disarming the lock that was put. There was another unseemly incident, and I haven't heard the destiny of either of these, where an individual quite stoutly built with a pickup truck that was booted at the airport went away and came back with a metal saw. Now you see, we are laughing, but we have to be clear that we are exposing these wardens to physical danger. And if people can physically attack, and physically assault a police officer in uniform with another police officer standing by as part of the happy audience. Because let me tell you something, in the United States that was not possible. Funeral bells will be ringing. I'm not saying that we need to go there, but I'm saying to you, this is dangerous stuff. And our propensity towards disorder, we have to be careful with who we give these jobs to. It's not a job that is a sorry state, meaning you give some young person a job because you're sorry for them. You will be exposing them, and it's a pity that Senator Lewis has left, because he knows quite intimately the difficulties the Technical and Allied Workers Union faced in representing and defending its members at the bus terminal. Under my leadership, we've had to call more than one strikes at that bus terminus because of the threat and physical harm. Right? There are bus operators there who physically abuse these wardens, slap them up. On one occasion, somewhere in River Road, one threatened to run his bus over her and came pretty close to doing it. So I am only pointing this out because this is indeed a dangerous job in a situation in which social conduct has a propensity to disorder. And the corollary side of that is that our courts are lenient and that there are officers of the court who trade in ensuring that rather than uphold discipline, that ill discipline is upheld. So this is a very serious job. Very, very, very serious and dangerous job. So it is not something to be taken lightly. And it is not a job, as I said, where you indulge in almost like if it were condolences. You feel sorry for somebody who's unemployed, so you get him a job. I am warning that we are going to enter a situation, because I saw it on the airport. This guy went to get and saw a power saw and cut, with sparks flying all over the place. He cut the metal off. He pelt the clamp somewhere to the bush, put his saw in the back of his truck, drove off. I've never heard what has happened to the destiny of that case. Neither the case involving the one that you and I saw outside of the development bank. And I say, of course, when you go to the courts, offenders now have more rights. Offenders of the law have more rights quite often than the victims. The courts are more obsessed with defending the rights of the accused. And we see this in the rape cases all the time. All the time. And sometimes I ask myself, where are the mothers? So I just thought that I would make this an input contribution. I am not supposed to be engaging in the debates, but I've told you time and time again, I really miss the activism on the floor. But I believe for whatever it is worth, we need to take that into consideration. And I think the point made by Senator Karine James, a very important point, not to be poo-pooed at all. Training, 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 training. Because you have, these wardens have to be trained in psychology. You have to be trained in, first of all, how to sense a dangerous situation. and how to be able to disarm that situation. You have, otherwise we're going to end up with people seriously injured in the execution of their jobs. I have a lot of confidence in the Commissioner of Police. It is somebody I know. And I think he will do professionally what is right. But I don't think one can overemphasize the importance. The other thing is this, that part of the problems that we have has got to be, is the narrowing of our roadways by the unrestrained building right. You know, the public has this perception that the road ends right where the tar edge ends. So there are no facilities for sidewalks. I see children coming down the Lotus Lane, because I live not too far from there. And how they navigate that traffic coming down there, it's unbelievable. I don't understand it. So we make no provisions for sidewalks. Whatever little sidewalks we have are now overrun by wayside garages and derelict vehicles that are parked up all over the place, right? That create bottlenecks to the extent that an entire home was burned down because the fire engine couldn't find the owner of the derelict vehicle. So we have some significant challenges facing us. Added to the traffic congestion, and I told you I photographed it, I videoed it, and sent it to the Commissioner of Police, are the service vehicles, who find it absolutely convenient at 7:30 in the morning to stop just outside of the lawn tennis court to deliver goods. And that backs up the traffic right back up to Homemade and right down to the Reno Cinema. Simply to deliver 2 cases of soft drink. So for 2 cases of soft drink, the economy loses hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yes, because of these goods trucks that come there and park up and choke the street and block the traffic. And then the same thing is being done now by the garbage trucks, which used to operate early in the morning. All right, I believe that all the garbage trucks now are 8 o'clock workers. So they are competing with you on the road to collect the garbage at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I just thought that for the government side, that you have administrative responsibility for these things, that note be made of that and the necessary measures taken to control the situation. Because it is quite frustrating, the amount of time. A build-up of traffic means loss of money to the economy, substantial amounts of money lost to the economy. The third point on this is the unrestrained dumping of garbage. I saw a truck dumping some discarded debris on a site that is visited heavily by tourists. And the individual was just dumping this thing on the side of the street and going about his way and left it there. It's still there, piled up on the side of the street. So if the wardens are going to do that job, then they must, of course, have communication equipment. They must be equipped with camera phones or something that they can take the evidence. Because not in every situation you can issue a ticket. In some situations, it may be ill-advisable to go and issue a ticket because you may be inviting physical harm to yourself. So I just thought I would just make these points. And now I would solicit, Senator Cox. The question is that the bill be read. Oh no, sorry, you have to wind that up, yes, and then I'll put the question.
Mr. President, I really want to thank you for those comments and critical observations, and they are quite on point, Mr. President. I believe that the Royal Grenada Police Force, in its assessment of the work that it continuously does on a daily basis, will definitely have to look at some of the measures that we have in place in terms of reviewing them, amending them, to treat with how incidences do evolve day by day. So they are quite critical. Mr. President, the comments by all members, and I think it goes to show the contribution from a number of persons in the House this evening on this particular amendment shows the importance and the significance of this initiative. But I really want to single out Senator James' suggestion of training in respect to just their written exam. But I think here what is present within the amendment, the exam is just basically to enter, for you to be approved as a warden. And training will definitely have to be done thereafter. But it is critical that the issuance or the utteраncing of training being highlighted here this evening is very important for the nature of the job, if it is to be performed effectively on a daily basis. So I really want to single out that. Mr. President, as regards to the salaries and the appointment, in the amendment on page 5, where it speaks to appointment of traffic wardens, you see here the Grenada Transport Board, with the approval of the Minister's recommendation for the Commissioner of Police. So it's a combination of persons who are involved. How it is presented in the bill, indicating the minister is the one to make the recommendations for the salary. It is more procedural and based on legislation, how it is crafted. It is stated like that. But obviously, we have the Department of Public Administration, and of course, the police will have to, Ministry of Finance will have to be involved. So the minister can't in any way arbitrarily just come up with a figure out of the sky to say how much the warden should be paid. And also, minister here, meaning a minister in cabinet, it will be, of course, a cabinet decision to finalize the salary of the wardens. So just for clarification, Mr. President, on that particular matter. As regards to the gears and clothing, some of those things here, Mr. President, are contained within the Principal Act. This is just an amendment. So everything else within the Principal Act applies to the wardens. This is just amendment within the Principal Act. So the other things that regards to protective clothing for the police officers, I believe that those are contained within the Principal Act and will also apply to the wardens who fall under the Act in general. Mr. President, in regards to someone that was asking, I think Senator Roberts was asking about the amount of persons who are going to be engaged. Initially, they are looking at about 20 traffic wardens initially, with, I think, between 3 to 5 for Carriacou. Thereabout, I don't have the exact figures, but Carriacou definitely is going to have as well. As indicated by my fellow colleague, it may not be island-wide, but more contained in the areas where the problem currently exists significantly. The issue of derelict vehicles, Mr. President, you speak to it. I think that is something very critical, and it creates a burden. Mr. President, something I observe, because of this congestion, almost every driver on the road seems to be impatient. Sometimes I ask myself, where are you going? Where are you going? You can't go anywhere. You're fighting to cross me, and you have 10 vehicles in front of me. So sometimes I kind of make fun of it, So I quickly make room and allow them to pass, and I just have fun because I realize that they can't go anywhere. But just a word of caution. If just road users just wait for a couple seconds, you could avoid $1,000 of expense and more time, hours, because as soon as you get into the accident, you have to wait hours in some cases where you have the accident for the police to come because they might be engaged in something more important. So just wait a couple seconds. Just wait a couple seconds. So, Mr. President, there are some of the small things that was mentioned. Remember, as when you have legislation, you have regulations also. So the regulations will speak to some of the things. As I said, this is just a broad context of how the wardens are to operate, but regulations will come thereafter to deal with some of the specific issues. So, Mr. President, I really want to thank members for their contribution on this important matter, and just to offer this bill up for second reading. Sorry. Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be ready second time. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Road Traffic Amendment Act 2018.
Senator Cox.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause.
Honourable members, the question is that the Senate resolves itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. The House is now resolved into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill, clause by clause.
Clause 2, amendment to Section 2 of the Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that Clause 2, amendment to Section 2 of the Principal Act, forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 3, amendment to Section 3 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is Clause 3, amendment to Section 3 of Principal Act, forms part of this bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 4, insertion of new Section 3B to Principal Act.
Honourable members, excuse me, yes. Senator Roberts, yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I wondered if we could have...
You have to put your mic down because...
Oh, sorry. I wondered if we could have made suggestions at this point. I was thinking to the traffic wardens, particularly if they are working at nights, rather than black trousers, use khaki. Because black in the night against light, it's kind of, what's the word, dangerous sometimes. I'm not sure, so I thought khaki and add the stripes on the pants as well as and rather than using baseball hats, probably the police cap may give more oomph. Authority, thank you, Ron. Authority rather than the baseball cap. I just thought tweaking it that if that would be possible. I don't know, but.
Mr. President,
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, sorry. Just to the couple of points that were raised and some just suggestion as regards to the having the police hat. I don't think that is by law to wear a police cap if you're not a police officer. That may be an issue. But I think the whole idea of the uniform was to try and set aside some clear distinction to the uniforms of other persons performing similar duties in other countries, so that when visitors come here, there is a clear distinction. They can quickly identify with that uniform. So I think that is why those colors were chosen in particular. But in terms of safety and if you notice in the bill, there is indicating that the decals will be reflective. So in the night, that can be easily picked up. RGPF traffic warden, I think the decals say that it would be reflective. But I think the whole concept, the idea, was to ensure that the uniform mimics those that other persons performing similar duties in other countries, be that so to treat with persons visiting that could clearly identify those persons as traffic wardens. So, but I do understand your suggestion.
Could I? Yes, Senator.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Well, in that case, after listening to Senator Cox's explanation, I think in the various clauses, I see that, for example, Clause 2, I'm not trying to go back there, but it says that to include reference to traffic wardens in like manner as reference to members of the police force. I think we should really add some more clarity to say of the police force under the traffic department or something like that. That's just my view of it, so as to really provide that clear distinction. Because if you say they can't wear the hats, I think we should make that absolutely clear as well as we go out, that they are not in like manner of a police officer, but more so under a particular department specifically responsible for the traffic and environment.
That is the question.
The next, Mr. Chair, how do you distinguish them? Because like I was saying earlier on, the clauses are more of a reflection to that of them doing most of the duties as a traffic, as an officer attached to the traffic department. So how do you make that distinction that they are not really, of course we know that they are not police because the exam wouldn't be the same like them with that. The training, well, you guys will be looking into that, but how do you distinguish their role? Because, yeah, how do you distinguish your role?
Listen, the whole issue is that the uniform clearly sets out a stark difference, and hence the reason why those contained within the bill in particular and not in regulations, that the uniform should be specific in that regard. As relates to the comment in terms of Clause 2, Clause 2 is not speaking specifically to the uniform per se to differentiate, but is speaking towards the powers, indicating that the wardens will now have the powers to operate as a police officer, to give tickets, to redirect traffic as so deemed necessary, to put clamps on vehicles. So it's within that context that Clause 2 is speaking with this amendment.
Somebody's light is on.
Yes. Mr. Chairman? Yes. Okay. So, based on the little discussion we had, should we then really put the uniform into law?
Well, I was just about to come to that point.
Yeah. Should we put the uniform into law,
Senator,
or just leave that to the discretion of the RGPF? Because when we... Or the Transport Board, because when we put it in here into law, it has to go as is because we're following the law that's passed here.
Could that be put into the regulations? Because
Mr. Chair, I am not sure, but I think one of the issues with putting it into law is to ensure and to make it illegal for persons to impersonate and to wear such outfit. So hence the reason why it is contained within the law. So yes, such as other officer's uniform. So that is what I think the distinction is there. Yeah. So that is why it is there.
But you know, Senator, we wear, what do you think? No, hold on, not khaki. Camouflage.
Well, it's against the law to wear camouflage. If you don't know, so you could get arrested for that. Well, I'm not arrested, but they can take it off for you. So make sure you have extra clothing.
But, yeah, again, just expanding on the point, I think every official function, so whether it is a Coast Guard, a police officer, a traffic, it is enshrining, and it's for that the purpose that you cannot imitate, you cannot impersonate. So if it were in regulations, then it is open, it is a lot lighter. So it opens itself for potential abuse. And I think the thinking here was, with traffic wardens, to fit in with that convention in terms of those uniform distinctions that are enshrined in law. And this, based on its role, even though there are differences in the function, but the principle behind the public awareness and the public image and the need to preserve that so a traffic warden will not be mistaken for anything else, or other functioning officers in other areas cannot be mistaken for anything else. So it's following that convention.
Could I just ask, could I just raise an issue here? As an extension of what I said earlier, I understand that there must be a distinction between the wardens and police officers. I mean, that's clear and that's irrefutable. It doesn't require an argument. But do you think a baseball cap conveys conveys the kind of psychological message that you want to send to the public? Or do you want to send a message that they are similar in status to the police? So while they may not have this police cap, but they may have a cap that carries a similar distinction that psychologically conveys that they're, because look, the idea of a baseball cap here, I'm sorry, in the culture, because I had to deal with my grandson the other day when he come with one turn behind his head. A baseball cap, to me, cannot convey what we want to convey for the people who are carrying out this function. From a cultural point of view. And I think we have to be conscious how people think. All right? And this is why I was saying maybe this could have been embedded more in regulations, which are then published and they become law because they're part of the regulations. Because a lot of this will be experimental. I see a fella in a baseball cap coming to me with a thing.
Mr. Chair,
I'm only just thinking aloud.
I understand. So, but Mr. Chair, I wish to indicate also, currently, police officers do have a baseball cap with the police emblem inscribed on it. And so I presume that is what is within that context that baseball cap is described. That is part of currently the police uniform. All police officers do have baseball cap. They do have soft caps. We call it baseball cap because of the type of material that is used, and is used more widely in sports. But those caps will be clearly identified.
But when somebody in trouble and they say police, they're looking out for a guy with a baseball cap. They're looking out for somebody like this officer. That's what they look out for.
I mean, part of what went on in terms of the research to come up with this is looking at, function, form, the type of role, so the choice of clothing, type of clothing, the environment they're going to be working in, outside, mobile, moving, they have to be comfortable. So I think there were considerations, and it's subjective, clearly, and what we are hearing here is that level of subjectivity. So there are those that would argue that a traffic warden should look very stern, very formal, very stiff, very authoritarian. There are others that will go to the other end of the extreme, saying they have to be very mobile, they're constantly on their feet, moving, so comfort would be a greater issue. So I think the persons who came up with this would have looked at traffic wardens in other jurisdictions, other areas, and try to balance between the presence that you would want, the authority that you would want a traffic warden to exude. It's not a casual function. And as you rightly said, Chairman, without the right training, without the right mentality, because vehicle traffic violations, there's a lot of emotion that could be associated with that. So you want that level of authority.
I noticed the age is 19 and up.
But you also need active persons. So to have somebody who is on the walking, I don't know what they would cover. It could be miles, many, many miles every single day, up and down. I mean, I wouldn't want to be walking up and down Market Hill in a stiff shoe, a leather sole shoe, a stiff pants, and a thing. So the point is, consideration would have been given to the garment. Is open for subjectivity. There are many rules of many different approaches that could be taken. Having this in regulation rather than law allows for flexibility. So as we experiment and we figure out what works, what doesn't work, would give easier flexibility. But what is being presented is to fulfill a convention with persons in authority and uniforms, which are enshrined in law, which is why we're following that. But I think as we implement this and we start seeing how this is functioning, what is practical, what isn't, what is working, what isn't, then it can be amended to suit. And if there is a need at some later point, because of the amount of variations that are required, that we take it out of law and put it into regulation, then that is something we can come back and do at a later time.
Yes, Senator Roberts.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I want to support your point, but additionally, when look at, even in this parliament, we, for many decades, used what happened abroad with the wig, because we looked to that as the norm, was accepted. But now in the 21st century, no wig. So in our case, I think we can look at other things and adapt to what we think is comfortable for us. And I wished, because sometimes when we're in the house, it's only like when you have certain bills, you have persons from legal affairs sitting here. It's a pity we didn't have them here this afternoon to explain further than we're going to pass this legislation and then have to come and change it. But I really think we should really look at crafting this in such a way that we do not have to undo.
Mr. President, before we look to close this bill, Mr. Chair, sorry, before we look to close this bill, and I think the member on the other side wanted to speak, lower down to me. For one, in the other place, quite a lot of debate was done on this bill as it relates to clothing. The wardens are not police officers. And based on the rule that is, we have a wrong as it relates to impersonating police officers. So one cannot wear camouflage clothing because that is reserved for the security services. The cap or the hat is also that. So you have to find a balance or clothing that will, yes, it's defined, will give them the authority. That clothing will be placed in law. That's why we went through all this. So thereafter, no one should try to impersonate a traffic warden. But additionally, as it is here, I used Section 30 to speak of immobilizing. And the reason why I use this, because I wanted to bring to the fore the backings that the traffic wardens will have as it relates to enforcing limited laws on the ground. So they will be there to regulate the traffic, assist the police officers in regulating the traffic, and now we'll be giving them broader responsibilities to regulate as it relates to environmental issues, abatement of the Litter Act. But it must be noted that this went through some teaching, counsel, before we arrive at this place. A traffic warden, there is a specification as it relates to a person who will be accepted as a traffic warden. After that is done, they will go through a rigorous period of training to bring them to the place where they will be then deployed on the road. Before that has happened, before we get to that place, they will not be deployed. But that is prescribed to bring them to the place where they will be able to effectively and efficiently carry the duties that will be required of them. And I do believe in the system that we went through to bring us to this place. If new revelations emerge after the wardens have been established, by all means, we should come and make amendments. But what I'm seeing here is a piece of legislation that is sung and will give us what we believe we want at this time to regulate the traffic. And with these comments, I want to continue to give support to the second reading of it.
So did we finish the sections? So could we move on? Be Ward 4? Did I canvass a vote for 4? Honorable members? Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Williams?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Much of what I wanted to say was already expressed by Senator Garraway, but I just wanted to make it clear that traffic wardens are wardens. They are not police officers, and I don't think we should be concerned with giving them the appearance of a police officer, because the functions that they are required to perform are very limited. There are about 6 or 7 things that they could do that a police officer can do. But when you look at the wide powers that police officers have, I mean, it's not really comparable. So their function, yes, while they do carry out some of the functions of police officers, I mean, citizens can carry out the functions of police officers. A citizen can make a citizen arrest, but we're not police officers. So because they carry out the functions, some limited functions of police officers, we should not try to give them the same status of a police officer, and therefore I don't think it's necessary to have them garbed identical to a police officer. I believe that the garments set out in the bill are quite adequate. The markings are quite adequate. It will just be up to the public to exercise restraint and obey the rule of law and to be obedient to the traffic wardens. So that is my contribution, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Honorable members, the question is that Section 4, insertion of the new Section 3B to the Principal Act forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. The contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 5, amendment to Section 6 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is Clause 5, amendment to Section 6 of the Principal Act forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Clause 6, amendment to Section 28 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 6, amendment to Section 28 of the Principal Act forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 7, amendment to Section 30A of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is Clause 7, amendment to Section 30 of the Principal Act forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 8, amendment to Section 44 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is Clause 8, amendment to Section 44 of the Principal Act forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 9, amendment to Section 67 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just have one little concern in Clause 9. I could be wrong, but I'm looking for some clarification. Now, it says here that the traffic warden would require the owner or the driver in charge to move the vehicle or trailer, well, for whatever reason, right?
Which clause is this?
Clause 9.
Clause 9.
Yeah.
Amendment to Section 6. I'm looking at Clause 9.
Yeah, Clause 9.
Yes?
Yeah. To Section 67.3 of the Principal Act. Yeah. Right? So the words cause it to be moved. I don't know, but to me that seemed to be a bit unnecessary. I could be wrong, but I see the words to move it. I see that as sufficient in terms of the duty or instruction rather to the driver or the owner of the vehicle, and to say cause it to be moved, unless you're trying to say that you're going to ask somebody else to move it on behalf of the owner, I don't know how that word would be applied there. So, Mr. Chairman, that's my concern.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this one. Yeah, this one. Yeah, Mr. Chair. Yeah. Yes. Basically, what he's saying that if the person failed to move, then they can tow it, something like that, cause it to move, meaning that he can so direct ask it to be towed, you know. So that's basically what he's saying. Yeah.
Honourable members, the question is that clause 9, amendment to section 67 of the Principal Act forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Clause 10, amendment to section 73 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that clause 10, amendment to section 73 of the Principal Act forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 11, amendment to section 83 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is that clause 11, amendment to section 83 of the Principal Act forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 12, amendment to Part 8 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question to be considered is that clause 12, amendment to Part 8 of the Principal Act forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 13, amendment to section 112 of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is clause 13, amendment to section 112 of the Principal Act forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 14, amendment to 5th schedule of Principal Act.
Honourable members, the question is clause 14, amendment to 5th schedule of the Principal Act forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 1, short title and commencement.
Honourable members, the question is clause 1, short title and commencement forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. Chair, I beg to move the Senate resumes and the chairman of the committee reports progress on the bill.
Honourable members, the question is that the Senate resumes and the chairman reports progress on the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. The contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Honourable members, the House now resumes. Honourable members, it is my pleasure to announce that the bill was subjected to the scrutiny of a committee of the whole House and was passed clause by clause without amendment. Senator Cox.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the chairman's report be adopted.
Honourable members, the question is that the chairman's report be adopted. Those who have that opinion say aye. The contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator Cox.
Mr. President, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honourable members, the question proposed is that the bill be read a third time. Honourable members, the question is that the bill be read a third time and passed. All those who have that opinion say aye. The contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Road Traffic Amendment Act 2018.
Item number 16, public business.
Sorry, Mr. President, I just wanted to make a recommendation.
In respect of?
The last bill we just passed, it kind of slipped me, to say that the warden should be 10-10, 10 male, 10 female. Equality, gender equality.
Okay. Yes, proceed. Yeah.
Item number 17, adjournment.
Senator, the Honorable Simon Steele.
Mr. President, I beg to move the adjournment.
Okay, honorable members, there don't seem to be any points on the adjournment, but I would wish to use the opportunity to first of all congratulate all senators for their contributions to the debate. I thought that the debate overall met the standards that we previously set, and in some respects, surpassed those standards. I was particularly impressed and encouraged by the young senators. I think amongst the sea of negative commentary about young people, your presence in this chamber is more than a spark of light. I think you exude great possibilities for the future. I know some of you, as novices on this journey, may feel a bit intimidated. I urge you not to. As you all spoke on both sides, I recall my early sojourn in this house. It's now 27 years and counting. I first entered this house in 1990. Well, somewhat of a freshman but with a long history of struggle, so a lot of this was not very new to me. I entered the political realm at a very early age and became the youngest member of the political bureau of the New Jewel movement. And so I had many, many years of training before I entered this house, so I would say that I was well prepared. But as I listened to the youngsters, it caused me to reflect on my younger days. Unlike Senator Steele, I am not claiming to be any senior. And I am certainly closer to the youth than to the seniors. But I really want to encourage you. Public service is a great service. Quite often you are the subject of ridicule, but primarily by people who don't have an iota of your capacity and of your willingness to serve country. So don't allow that to disturb you. Like iron in the fire, the more attacks you get, the more ridicule you get, the better you will become. So I said, take it head on. Karine, of the well, let me put it this way. I'm separating the youth now. I think you are maybe the youngest amongst all of the senators. And I take great pride and joy in your presence in the House. Politics is it's an art and a science. And both you will learn over time. There will be a time when you reflect when you first came here, as I quite often reflect, and as you make me reflect when I first came here. Somewhat older than you and more, spent more time in the fire, but nonetheless, all right, heating up. But nonetheless, I really want to congratulate you. I think you are doing your generation proud. I don't know your parents, but this must be a proud moment for them. It must be a proud moment for your village. And it must be a proud moment for the political party who sent you on this near Mission Impossible journey. Because you are coming up against some of the best debaters the country has got. And even though you may fall short, or others may think you fall short, always remember, if you do fall short, you're falling short in high standards, right? So that you should still feel very aptly proud. And I really want to encourage you to continue to give serious consideration to your studies and to, plan your career path ahead. It may be necessary for you to take a sabbatical out of the politics and to come back, not that you would give up, but like a good long jumper, you have to trace your steps back to gather speed to come again. So it may be something you wish to consider. Senator Ron, I know the genetic stock from which you've come. So I'm not surprised by your spirit. In fact, I would be surprised if your spirit was any less than you have exhibited. The same words of encouragement that I've given to your colleague, I will give to you. Because this is a knowledge-based world. And it is important for us to gain as much knowledge as we would have. Again, I want to congratulate you on your contributions. And it is my charge that you continue along that line. I think it speaks a lot for the future. And I could feel satisfied that when the bell rings for me, whenever it rings, I'll be able to feel the kind of confidence that we've left Grenada in secure young hands with a vision that I share and that we can be transformative for a people who have traveled a very long journey from slavery to this point and still a long journey to go. But I have confidence as I look at young people that we can make it. We have to make it. Can't afford to fail. Our foreparents did as much as they could have done in exceedingly difficult circumstances of injustice, and so we need to carry that torch. Now to the other side. The two lady senators on the government side, well, again, my pride is just bubbling. I look forward to the day when we would have the first female prime minister. And that should not be long off the track. I hope we beat the Americans to it, though. I hope we beat the Americans to it. And so this is a really great opportunity for both of you. It requires sacrifice because the way our sociology works, women carry an enormous burden in the society. You're not only child bearers, but you are child rearers. Coupled with that, you now have your own individual careers in law, and now you're called upon to serve your country in the political field. This is not an easy journey for you, I know. But I believe that you have the capacity because Grenadian women are strong. Black women in particular are strong. The journey that we have traversed is proof of that strength. And while I completely abhor the violence of the male over the female, I think a lot of that violence has got to do with the fact of inadequacy faced by the African male. And it is something that we have to address sociologically, and it's something that we have addressed together. But I am satisfied that the right decisions were made. I am satisfied that you've answered the call, and I feel justly proud of both of you. Well, for the old-timers, what can I say? There's one newcomer, but not a youngster. Well, we go back quite a number of years as good acquaintances and so on. You've always been a patriotic Grenadian, putting your skills and knowledge to the benefit of the ordinary working man, because that is upon the base, that's the social base of our agriculture, the ordinary working man. And I feel heartened that somebody could leave the arena of academia and come down to the grassroots. Too often our academics fly in exalted towers and see themselves as chosen godlike figures, instructing everyone on things that they should do. But somebody once told me, you never saw a university graduate heading up any significant business. They are always employees of people who never been to university. And the example of that, of course, was L.A. Purcell and others. Well, I know of your academic, your athletic prowess, and I'm happy to have you in the house. I had to call on you on the first day quite often, and well, there was no room for regret, you know. There was no room for regret. You were stately as you would normally carry yourself, and of course. Now I want to make a few comments. I think, well, the others, I mean, we've been in this journey together. Judd? No, well, when I spoke about the two youngsters, I meant Judd. I mean, Judd in particular. Not in protest, but Judd knew. I mean, we had an opportunity, the leader of government business and I, to interview Judd some time ago. And we came to the conclusion after that interview, Judd, that you have a whole big, bold, brave world ahead of you. And we saw very great things in you when we did that interview. We can't tell you about the interview now because it is confidential. But when we made those determinations, we didn't expect less. Right? And as I say, like your colleagues on the other side, so they're good things. I mean, you on the government side and they on the opposition side, I think we will be better than where we came from. All right? And so don't, coming back to you, Karine, find your own voice isn't meant to belittle you, but it is meant to shed the old skin and to put on new armor. And I know you can do it. Judd, you can do it, and you're doing it right. I mean, Judd is in the Senate, he's still in school, you too, still studying. You know, and I mean, how much more confidence could we place in young people? You know, but we do have some challenges, huh? And together we have to face them. I think for us as a society, we have gone soft on discipline. I think we've borrowed a North American philosophy of it's the responsibility of the other man or the other person, that we disassociate ourselves from our own actions and put the responsibility on somebody else. And so we have some serious challenges that we have to confront together. But I think with youngsters like you, it is clear that we could overcome these problems. Now, I want to move quickly on to some observations and some recommendations as I looked and listened to the debate of the 2019 budget. First, I want to co-join all those who have expressed profound gratitude to the service being rendered to our community by members of the Royal Grenada Police Force. I only hope you don't go and rock the rule. Because if you do, then a whole lot of us will be in trouble. So I hope you don't follow that call to work to rule. But here again, young people in uniform, upholding the law, protecting all of us, and making sure that Grenada is a better place. I want to touch very briefly on sexual offenses and what I describe as the epidemic of sexual offenses. I want to take issue to the current cultural conditioning of the objectivization of women. And it's a period that we are living in where I see the worst. In the old days when I was growing up, when we had calypso tents, there was censorship. There were songs that were sung for adults. And if you wanted to hear certain songs, you went to a calypso tent to hear them. You didn't have to hear them inside of your living room with children. Neither did we have the television screen that bombards children with all messages of sexuality. 99.9% of all the messages that come on television is a sexual message. This objectivization finds its worst expression in certain cultural art forms that we now glorify. I will name them and run the risk of being ridiculed. Soca, dancehall music, and rap, where every part of a woman's anatomy is highlighted, focused on, and promoted. It's a sickening exercise. And there's little wonder that we have this explosion of sexual crime. Then you see it in our failure to censor the television which comes into our homes, so that the kids in the living room, during the working day, during vacation, during the evening, the sexual messages that come over public television. Now, if as an adult you want to go and subscribe to an adult site in the privacy of your bedroom, that's a different matter. I mean, I could comment not on that. But to have piped into our children at 6 o'clock in the evening, 7 o'clock in the evening, in the news, in which you have corporate sponsors sponsoring the so-called soca shows, with the most vulgar and vile exhibition of the female anatomy on television for our children to see, and we call it culture. I find it is rather disgusting, and it explains where we are and why we are where we are. That's the challenge, Senator. That is the challenge that we face. I look at how other races and other countries and other societies with serious limitations, as we have faced as a people, how they have been able to rise against those challenges. I look at the transformation in the People's Republic of China, and to see where within less than 70 years, they have moved more people out of poverty than almost the whole population of Africa. I've looked at how a backward agrarian economy has now become the leading edge of technology, and how they have been able to transform themselves, how they have become a world nation state, possess nuclear weapons, highly advanced in medicine and all branches of science. And when I look at my motherland, what I see. And so we have a serious challenge ahead of us, right? And I call on all of us as legislators. I know some liken flogging to slavery. Well, let me tell you, I flog my children, and I'm proud of them. I'm not a slave master. I know it works.
I know it works. And the farmers will tell you when a particular judicial officer was in the district, it worked. Senator Campbell, it worked. Yes? And I more prefer the flogging than to be executed at the end of a police pistol, as happened in some countries up north. Right? Where you fail to train the children, you fail to teach the children, you're afraid to restrain the kids. And by 14 or 17, they're totally out of control. My grandmother used to say, bend the tree when it's young. That's the only opportunity you have. So, with respect to the sexual offenses, I think that we have to, first of all, tighten the legislation. I think the legislation is too lenient, quite frankly, too lenient. People are committing sexual crimes against children, and they're getting 7 years in jail with time served. What's happening to us? There was a murder of an 8-year-old. An 8-year-old, after which she was sexually assaulted. Last night on the television, a missing 7-year-old boy in Trinidad. So it's here, and then, as I said, the leniency. The leniency, I don't understand what is happening with our other branch. I can't speak disparagingly of them, but I can express my concern. And I think as legislators, we have a duty to tighten the laws. We have a duty to tighten the punishment that is meted out, to send the message that this kind of behavior is not accepted. Compare colonial times to now. When I grew up, there were about 2 murders. When I grew up, you were found guilty of rape, you were flogged with a cat-o'-nine tail. You were found guilty of murder, you were hung. Justice was swift, certain, and predictable. Swift, certain, and predictable. How do you murder someone because they step on your sneakers? How do you rape and murder a 7 or 8-year-old? Something is wrong, and we have to take the necessary steps to bring back balance. Period larceny, serious problem. Again, we need stiffer punishment. We need a dedicated section in the police force, a unit specifically set up, and a court specifically set up to deal with this matter. Because unless you address that issue, you are destroying all of the energy that the farmers have, and it's just unfair. Economic transformation. I think our country in the last 5 years have been exceedingly successful in balancing the fiscal business of the state. But that is only one part of the equation. We now have to transform the economy. We have to move the economy from a plantation economy. We still have significant relics of it. We have to tackle the structural problems of unemployment, and that requires holistic transformation. I want to suggest 2 ideas here for the government side to take note of as transformative. Fishing. I would want to see us, and I've said this before, it is time for us to reestablish the fisheries school. There is a golden opportunity there for young people and for people in the Imani program. They can be taught boat building skills, they can be taught navigating skills, and they can be taught fishing skills. Right? The ocean out there is a wide ocean. Senator Campbell spoke to when the Cubans came and they introduced longline, how that transformed the amount of fish that we caught. The market for fish overseas is a lucrative market. I think that we should spend much more time in promoting that area in the economy. Right? And as I said, you can build your own boats. We have a boat building culture in Carriacou and Petit Martinique.
that could be integrated into it. A lot of the youngsters could become fishermen. It's big business. In the United States and Maine, the fishing business is really a family-structured business. And Maine is one of the richest states in the United States, all because of just exploiting the sea. We can do the same thing here, and we can involve a lot of young people in that process. I just want to touch on the point of land use, because one of the problems of the Farm Roads project is that it has not significantly expanded agriculture. What it has done is expanded real estate. And so we spend a lot of money laying down these roads. But the farmers, because the mean age is 70, I think it is, they see this really as a source of pensionable income. And once you put the roads down, the lands are then cut up. I mean, when I drive the lower part of Capital, you call Birch Grove, going into just before the Balthazar Bridge, and I witness what has happened to that bit of flat land there with water 365 days a year, even before Columbus came here, that can be mechanized, that we can do all the high-impact fruits and vegetables, and what we have allowed that place to become and is becoming, it actually saddens my heart. The other thing is this. Tourism seems to be where we are going. And we have to avoid urbanizing our tropical ambience. And that is already beginning to happen. So, for example, if you go up to the Annandale Falls right now, quite often I ask myself, what it is all these tourists really come up here to see? Because we are urbanizing the area. We are building homes almost right close to the falls. I made a walk up the falls not too long ago, and I couldn't understand how a house that I've seen being built there, feet away from the main course feeding the falls. So I asked myself certain questions which I would not repeat here. But we have to put a stop to the urbanization of our tropical ambience, because this is what attracts people. People come here to see greenery. People come here to see trees that they won't see because they come from New York City or so on. They come here to feel that touch with nature. And therefore, and again, I want to appeal now to the bushers. When you cut down all the bamboo, I have seen the slaughtering of our bamboo groves along the Granitang Road going up. And this has led to the collapse of large sections of the road. When the British put in those bamboo groves, they did it for a particular reason, to preserve the roads from collapsing, yet we are slaughtering them. And as I say, this urbanization of our natural rural environment has got to stop. We have got to preserve certain areas in its natural habitat. I've seen huge silk cotton trees completely destroyed. Trees that may have been around for the last 200 and something years. Right? And as a people, culturally, we don't have a respect for nature as we should have. So I want to make these appeals. And with the land use policy, we have to put some strict land use in place. It's a ticklish political question, I must admit. But if you put in these roads and all of your agricultural land now becomes housing, because this is what has happened in the Farm Road program. This is what has happened. All right? So it requires closer planning. It requires more rules and regulations, because you cannot have a situation in which one of your premier hotels in this country, where rooms go at $5,000 and $6,000 a night, when you look to the back, you see slumming coming over the mountainside. The two can't coexist. So we have to have areas built up for working people, and we have to have areas preserved for a tourism product. Right? You can't have, in the middle of your most expensive piece of real estate in the Caribbean, somebody erects an office. Somebody erects one of the largest fast food joints you could find. Somebody
opens a store to sell home electronics on your most valuable piece of real estate. I mean, the two things just don't go together. I can tell you that a maid in a particular hotel, which will remain nameless at this point, her average monthly salary, meaning salary plus service charge, in some instances is more than a qualified teacher. That is the value of the industry. I can tell you that the chefs in some of these facilities make 3, 4, and 5 times the salary of the Prime Minister. That's the value of this industry. So, you can't have incompatible construction taking place, because what will happen ultimately is that the tourists will flee. And all you will be left with are empty buildings, which over time will become derelict. If you had an opportunity to visit the Silver Sands at its opening, then you will begin to have an eye-opener of what the future holds for us in this question of tourism and the service sector, and the leisure sector, and the vacation sector, what it holds for us. Where I live, I could see the yachts. And I have a cousin now who has stopped doing what he's been doing all his life and working just on those yachts. When he works on one yacht, he makes more money than he's made in the last 2 years. And he's a Grenadian, but he has the technological training. So there are great possibilities, but we have to plan. This thing has to be planned properly. The Vai-Ki-Vai approach of doing things, those days have come to an end. So again, I want to appeal to the government side to take these things into consideration, and let us begin on a more integrated, transformative plan for our country. We have natural beauty that other countries don't have. I mean, the Bahamas and Barbados are the meccas of tourism, but they don't have our beauty. And we have to learn how to leverage those things in order to improve the life of our people and to get the people to begin to understand that things need to be different. Things need to be different if we are going to improve our lives and our livelihoods. Honorable members, again, I want to thank you. I want to take the opportunity. This will be the last sitting for 2018 unless there's something pops up. And therefore, I want to take the opportunity to extend to you all the profound Christian greetings that come at this time of the year in respect of the Christian religion. You know, there are different religions and they have different religious ceremonies, but we are predominantly in the practice of Christianity, and therefore I want to share those sentiments with you. Police officers, I want to wish you and your families all the best for the season. I hope you have a good one, and so too all my fellow senators, and we look forward to the new year. The clerk and staff, I want to publicly thank you for your service, for your dedication to duty. Now that we have a new facility, it has its own challenges and so on. But I want you to continue to keep going. Now, finally, to all members of Parliament, you know we were supposed to have the post-election seminar, which was scheduled for October the 29th last, but which, because of several intervening matters, had to be postponed. It has now been rescheduled for January 7th to the 9th, and all senators will be invited. I think you should arrange your schedule, especially the newcomers, that you don't miss this. It's a good opportunity, really, yes. January 7th to 9th. It's a good opportunity for you. You will find that
that there's a lot of rich experience and so on that you would learn from, to assist you in your work inside of the Senate at this time. So once again, members of the Senate, seasoned greetings to all, you and your families. And well, if we meet up over the season, I normally drink vodka and tonic. So you can bear that in mind when I knock on your door. With some roses lime, of course. Yes. Honorable members, the Senate now stands adjourned, sine die.